As the founder and chief executive of the Wills&Co financial group for the last 15 years, I've never been involved in a regulatory environment as we find ourselves today. Regulation, and whilst we have that word regulation, and it has been touted around as being the buzzword for all politicians in the past because of what has happened, and I think that we all agree, everybody within the financial services sector, that elements of the regulation have been flouted by big firms, the banks, but generally not by the stockbrokers. The stockbrokers that I know have gone around their business generally, and of course, like in any other industry, there are stockbroking firms which don't deserve to be in business. But generally speaking, we all go around our business trying to do our best by our customers and staying afloat. Where we are in this economic cycle right now is that the institutions won't invest in small cap stocks. The reason they won't invest in small cap stocks now is because there is no exit route. If that institution changes its mind about its investment portfolio, then where's it going to go? Will it sell it to another investment portfolio, to another institution? It won't do that. The private investor has an absolute part in the food chain of buying and selling stocks and shares in this country. And in my opinion, the FSA's actions against Wills&Co stockbrokers has completely put a stop to that. But if it was just Wills&Co stockbrokers, you'd probably say, oh, Peter Shakeshaft is having a moan, it's about Wills&Co stockbrokers. But it isn't. Because it isn't just Wills&Co stockbrokers. I could name on two hands, probably if I had three hands, I could name the amount of companies that have been closed down. When Hector Sands, the chief executive of the Financial Services Authority, said to the big banks, be afraid, be very afraid, I thought the banks were going to have a real hard time. We didn't cause this problem in financial services. The banks did. We've just been stockbrokers. We're dealing with private clients every day of our lives. But it seems to me that the banks are too big to fail, and firms the size of us with 19,000 clients, 9,000 trading clients, were not. And if that's the case, where does that leave the rest of the sector? It's time to wake up. It's time to understand. It's time to realise that if we don't get this under control and bring the FSA under some sort of control, some sort of scrutiny so they actually understand what is happening with this market, then frankly, I fear for the small cap market trading on AIM and Plus and some on the main market in the future. Because without the private investor, you have nothing. Private investors want to know, they want the interest, but the difficulty with companies is that they can't afford the regulatory risk for presenting that offering to them. If you're going to have a regulator such as the FSA that is going to have a responsibility to the general public when they sell insurance or when they sell stocks, it's completely incompatible.
Do you think there's a balance to be struck between consumer protection and regulation when it involves high-risk stock?
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. At the moment, you can't lose, because if you take my earlier point that every single stockbroker, if you take the FSA rules, are in breach, and they are, undoubtedly they are, then it goes by that very nature that the financial ombudsman scheme will take place and it will be found against the firm. How we put that across, how we determine what a high-risk stock is, has to be an agreed brand or strategy amongst investors, so they understand that if they're going to invest in small cap stock, that there is no investor protection, and they understand that they could lose all their money. And that's the prerequisite. You can give as many risk warnings as you want, as many as you want. I can spend 14 hours explaining risk warnings, but would they go into the private investor? Of course they wouldn't. The important element of it is that if you're going to buy a designated small cap stock, that you will have the knowledge that that is a hugely risky investment. They are hugely risky investments, but people like to punt, and it is a punt. I don't believe that any private investor in this country buys a AIM or Plus stock thinking it's going to give them a dividend for the future. They're buying it for capital growth. And if they're buying it for capital growth, as long as the stock exchanges, whether that be Plus or AIM, is regulated by the FSA, which it is, and has its own internal checks and balances in place, which it does, that should be suffice to know that we are not buying rubbish companies with no prospects.
Do you think the FSA understands the needs of the clients who invest in penny shares? And do you think that the FSA understands the issues involved in this particular market?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, at Wills&Co stockbrokers, we're in the small firms area of the FSA, and it comes back to my point about selling stocks like you're selling an insurance product. It's incompatible. You can't do that. And until we get to this point of dismantling the FSA and getting experts back into an SFA, the stockbrokers regulation, I can't see that changing. Certainly the people that I've met within the FSA do not understand this market. In my humble opinion, I don't think they do. I do think, though, that if those same people understood it in a stockbroking and just a stockbroking scenario, then I think they would. I don't think it's rocket science, and I think we all have to understand, both the FSA, the regulator, whatever the regulator may be, the stockbrokers, they have to understand, and the private investor has to understand. We can get this done, but it has to be simplified, more simplified than it is today.
If Wills&Co was in business today, in the stockbroking business, as it was 12 months ago, do you feel that the consumer would be better or worse protected?
Interestingly, we spent a significant amount of money with a highly regarded a technical team that came into our offices and looked at our systems and made some significant changes to the methodology of our client liaison. All our brokers were then retrained to trade in this marketplace. And as a consequence of being allowed the time by the FSA to get this right, for them to come round and then unilaterally continue this action, for us to run out of money at the end of the day, it has been a waste of money. Significantly, it cost us about £1.5 million to get to where we got to, for no result. So how does that affect the private investor? The people who have actually got the stocks and shares, well, surely the FSA's remit is to look at client protection. That's what they're there for, is client protection. If you speak to anybody at the FSA, they'll always say, client protection, client protection, client protection. We've done all the hard work. All the hard work with these consultants was done and agreed by the FSA. The private investors are disadvantaged by what has happened. Not advantaged. No, they haven't got any more protection. What has happened now is that because the small cap market is closed, their investments more likely will go down rather than up. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for the private clients. It's not good for the city's reputation.